details. This is a Matchless Independence 35. It's a 3-channel amplifier from Matchless that does pretty much everything and does it really well. Links below to grab those presets and captures for Line 6, Helix, HX Stomp, Podgo, Fractal, Axfx 3, FM3, FM9. Let's see, we got TONEX 1, it's out now, as well as the big TONEX pedal, and the software, Quad Cortex, Headrush Prime, and Kemper. think of Matchless, and I think when a lot of people think of Matchless, the first thing that'll come to mind is the C30. That's the flagship amplifier, the 2-channel C30. It's my all-time favorite amp. I have a 94 C30. It's awesome. You can get presets for that linked below as well. But then maybe you think of like the Chieftain, which again, awesome. But spoiler, Matchless is my favorite amp company in the world. They make my all-time favorite amps. Then you've got, you know, the Clubman, maybe. I think the Independence 35 might fly under a lot of people's radar. At least it did for me. And I actually bought this amp new from Phil at Matchless, and I told him all the amps I had, and I said, what would you recommend? He goes, go old school versatility, get an Independence 35, 3 channels. So this thing, like I said, it's a 3-channel amplifier. Channel 1 is the clean channel, and I would describe it very similar to the Clubman. It's a little different. To me, it's kind of like the Clubman meets the C30. It's the classic, clean, chimey, brilliant, matchless tone. Then you've got channels 2 and 3. Now, these 2 channels sort of share the same EQ tone stack, but they have independent gain controls. So the way this thing is set up is you use channel 1 for your clean tone, then you use channel 2 for like a crunch tone, and you can kick it to channel 3 for like a big lead tone. Channels 2 and 3 will sound pretty similar if you gain them similarly, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you've just got 2 gain options to go from big to bigger. And I would describe these 2 channels like if Matchless makes a Plexi that you can crank. That's what this sounds like. It sounds amazing. The captures of this thing are awesome. Now, when we did the tone match stuff, we used Matchless clean type amps to match to the channel 1, and then I used Marshall amps like a Plexi or maybe a JTM 45 to match to channel 2 and 3. It's got that thing, but it's got a very distinctive Matchless tone on top of it. Now, this thing came with a matching, it's back there, in white sparkle, by the way. This is an awesome color on this amp, too. Feels like I got some white and silver sparkle TONEX. You should probably use that. I said, let's do it. So it's got the matching 212 cab. Now, it has what Phil is currently using at Matchless for the 212 cabs, like if you get a DC30, or this 212, they're mismatched speakers, but they're creamback speakers. So they have a sort of a different sound than the old, like my old 94 C30 has a vintage 30 in it. And Phil kind of gave me some information about why he uses the speakers that he used. So he said back in the 90s, he's been with the company since way back then. He built that 94 C30. It's over there, I keep pointing. He built that amp as well. So he said back in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s, they used the V30s because Celestion, and they were UK made, and they loved the way they sound, and then Celestion changed them, and they didn't like them as much anymore. That's when they went to the G12H30s that are, and I have one of those in a 112 matchless cab. So they, in the early 2000s, they went to the G12H30, and then they did the mismatched G12H, G12M with like the DC30. Phil said that Celestion changed the recipe on those sometime, a few years later. So now they're using the creamback speakers, and they do sound really good. They give a bit of a different, like if I were to describe the difference between like the V30 and the G12H30 and these creambacks, the V30 and the G12H30 sort of have like a, and these are like Matchless takes these and they tweak them themselves as well. So they sort of break them in and do a few things to give them the signature sound. The creambacks have like this sort of softer, warmer, mellower top end. It still does the chime, but it has like a warmth to it that the other ones don't. And the other speakers, the V30, G12H30, they'll have like this bitier, brighter, chimey top end. So I would not say one is better than the other. They're just different. Now this amp we captured through the 212 with the creamback. Now these presets are available for Line 6 devices. You've got Helix, HX Stomp, Pod Go. For the Helix presets, and this applies to Axe Effects as well, what we did was we matched channel 1 to a matchless amp, matched channel 2 to like a Marshall amp, and then we set the preset up so you've got a button that swaps between the two amp blocks. So it's essentially like changing from channel 1 to channel 2. Now we didn't give you a third amp block in there. 1, because of DSP constraints. 2, because if you want more gain out of that second channel, you just turn the gain up on the amp block. That's essentially what you do with this amp to go to channel 3. If you want 3 channels of matchless glory, I suggest that you just call Phil at Matchless and order one of these. You can get one. Now, for the HX Stomp patch, you get that as well. In the Stomp patch, multiple amp blocks. For Pod Go, you can't do 2 amp blocks, so there's a clean preset and a channel 2 preset. Channel 1 and channel 2, clean and like dirt. So that covers the line 6 stuff. For the Fractal stuff, you get a very similar layout, except we're using amp channels to switch. You know, the amp block has channel switching. We're using the amp channels to switch, or the channel switching to switch between channel 1 and channel 2. And that applies to all of them, XFX3, FM3, FM9. All the wet effects are after the amp block in this case, because when you gain up the amp, it messes with the mix if stuff are, if wet effects are in front, if that makes sense. So in this case, and in all the channel switching type presets, we put wet effects after the amp block. For the capture devices, you get captures of all 3 channels. So you get clean captures kind of going up through the gain range. You get channel 2 and channel 3 captures. Now, the captures are all labeled with a number, and as the number goes up, that means that the gain goes up. And you'll notice that like a channel 2.5 and a channel 3.5 are going to sound pretty much the same. That's by design. That's the way this amp is made. So, you know, the manual suggests like, you know, set channel 2 as your like, you know, crunch type of a tone, and then channel 3 is your lead type of a tone. But you can make them sound almost exactly the same, the channel 2 and channel 3. I think I've mentioned that like 3 times now. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, links below to grab all of these presets. There will be an IR pack available for the cab as well, if you want that to run in something like an ACS1 or use a separate IR loader. That's available to you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you in the next one. Bye.